Governor Warjiyo, good morning, and thank you very much for giving us your time today to talk about some of the issues faced by the Central Bank of Indonesia. I'd like to kick off just by asking you about the most difficult time over the last 18 months in the face of the pandemic. How has Bank of Indonesia managed to address the problems created by COVID-19?
Thank you, Paul. This is my pleasure to share what we are seeing in Indonesia, what we are looking in Indonesia, and how we cope with the pandemic, not only the central banks, but also very close coordination with the government. Let me just start with outlining how our economic moving as well as the condition of the COVID before answering what the central bank do. Our government is very serious in addressing the COVID-19, including the Delta variants, vaccination, discipline. The cases now is declining very fast, and now the government start opening some of the sector. Overall, on the economic perspective, we are looking our economic growth this year will be about 3.5 to 4.3% after a negative or recession last year, 2.07%. Last quarter, second quarter, we grew by 7.07%. The third quarter, we are expecting to be growing by 5% and fourth quarter, 4.5%. Next year, we forecast our economy will be growing by 4.6 to 5.4%. Our growth mainly supported by strong performance of the export sector, Paul, as well as incoming of large foreign direct investment from overseas. Thanks to our structural reforms last year, the government do very structural reform, opening up our economy, streamlining the business, as well as inviting foreign direct investment, especially for downstreaming our national resources. One of the example, Paul, Indonesia will be one of the biggest producer of lithium battery. Automotive car, electric car, and the green economy is moving. And how we cope with the COVID-19 to support our economy. Of course, this is not only the work of the central bank. This is a coordination, very close coordination with the government. One, I already mentioned the vaccination, medical. Second, of course, from the government, also supporting the fiscal, especially for the needy social program, as well as opening up the economy structural reform. I think that's from the part of the government. How the central bank supporting our economy? Thank goodness, inflation is very low, 1.5%. In Indonesia, we have a target 2 to 4% this year and next year. So our inflation is very low because the demand is just rising. So we have from the central bank have the room for supporting our economic growth. You know, Paul, the central bank mandate is price stability, but supporting economic growth. With the inflation is very low, then we have more room to support the economic growth. How we do that? We have 5 policy. One, macro monetary policy. Second, macro prudential policy. Third, payment system. Fourth, money market deepening. 5, inclusion, economic inclusion. With the inflation is very low, and we need to support growth, we, from monetary policy last year, took a very aggressive cut of our policy rate from 6.5% now 3.5%. The policy rate, the lowest in the history. Second, in the monetary policy, we also inject so much liquidity in the financial market. The quantitative easing, so to speak. The unconventional monetary policy, so to speak. How much? Very large. 5.4% of GDP. So monetary policy are for supporting economic growth. That's one of the policy. Second, on the macroprudential policy. As you know, Paul, macroprudential policy is the policy of the central bank to support the financing to the economy, as well as also supporting the financial system stability. With the economic on the path of the recovery, still output gap now, the lending is still very low, which is only 1.5%. Don't compare with UK, Paul. We used to grow by 15% and so on. So you can speak 1.5% is very low. That's why we relax our macro prudential policy. What are the relaxation of the macro prudential that we do? One of them, what we call it loan to value ratio, which is the policy of loan over the value of the underlying asset. So you can say about the down payment of the people that can borrow from the bank. We relax, we loosen to how much? Only 0% down payment. So people can borrow from the bank easily to support the economy. Among others, to buy car, automotive loan, as well as for purchasing property. Now, well, if you want to buy property, I know UK is very expensive. The Indonesia is cheap. So people are now buying property because the price is very cheap. Those on the macro prudential policy. The payment system, we do take digitalization. We will talk later on about digitalization, but our payment system is being transformed into digitalized to support the national economic digitalization. I will talk later on when we talk about the digitalization. And fourth, of course, financial market deepening. Indonesia is not as advanced as UK. Not much asset securities that we can buy. Mortgage-backed securities, corporate bond is still limited. So we are supporting those for money market deepening. The fifth is inclusion. It's very important because Indonesia, very big countries. Retail market is very big. SME is very big. We have 65 million SME. So we support those through, among others, including to digitalize them, to go into the platform of e-commerce, as well as financing from the fintech. So, Paul, of course, every country had the problem. This is a very complex problem from the COVID, from the virus, impacted the mobility of the people, health, humanity, and the economy. But most of all, Indonesia, we got together. We hold hand very strong to ensure the life of the people can be secured, but at the same time supporting the need of the people, social program, and of course recovery of the economy. Very strong coordination between the government and the central bank, and we are glad to do that.
I was interested that you didn't mention the exchange rate, and I know that Indonesia keeps a very close eye on the exchange rate. So just wondered whether has it not been an issue for you, or have you had to take any actions in that front?
Paul, thanks for your very excellent answer. Indonesia is small, open economy. We are very open economy. trade, investment, exchange rate flows are very open. Well, of course, if small pond and the big 11, so to speak, when there is happening in the global, then of course our exchange rate move. In many cases, in most cases, our exchange rate is determined by the market, demand and supply in the market. But being a small open economy, and certain time we cannot let be determined by only the market. When is the time where actually very big shocks from the global? For example, March and April last year, 2020, remember, Paul, when the spread of the COVID globally making panic in the global financial market, and everybody want to get out from any country, including Indonesia. Indonesia, in only 2 weeks, Paul, 2 weeks, 11 billion US dollar out. And that's why the central bank need to step in. And those certain time, then we intervene in the market. We sell our foreign exchange rate to stabilize the exchange rate as well as to provide the liquidity for the investor. But we also coordinate with the government. We not only adjust our exchange rate to the global shock, but also we let the government bond yield to adjust. Mostly foreign investor Indonesia holding government bond. Back then was about 38% of government bond issue was held by the government. On this time, then we let exchange rate to depreciate. We let the yield of the government to also increase, but we hold together to intervene. So the increase is not very big. It's still manageable. Still, of course, there is some increase, but not creating the panic. So in short, Paul, exchange rate of Indonesia is market determined, but the central bank stand by to intervene wherever when you need it by selling our dollar, purchasing government bond from secondary market being sold by foreign investor, as well as also continue strengthening our ability to intervene both in the spot market and the domestic non-delivery forward. So those what we call it triple intervention in the spot, domestic non-delivery forward, and purchasing government bond and from the secondary market that being sold by foreign investor. And thanks goodness, my lab is being, I spending most of my life, entire my life working with the central bank. I'm living from crisis to crisis. 97, I also live, ASEAN crisis also involving those. In global financial crisis, I was executive director of the IMF, looking at the global crisis. After that, Fed taper tantrum, I was deputy governor. And now the COVID, also there is a global spillover coping with the COVID. But the spirit of the togetherness, holding hand, that's the spirit of Indonesia. That's making us stronger. That's that making we can serve the need of the people and the country.
One final thing on this is one thing about comparing it with, say, the global financial crisis was that we could still work in our offices during the financial crisis. My colleagues in the Bank of England have been working from home for the most part.
Yeah.
Last 18 months. Have you had the same issues in Indonesia?
Yes.
People working from
yes,
home?
I've been living. I'm still working from my home. I already transformed my one of my office and my home to be office.
Yeah.
So, but making efficient, Paul. I'm being accustomed of working virtually. And to be frank with you, Paul, in the Central Bank of Indonesia, I already asked my staff to prepare hybrid forever.
Yeah.
For even when the COVID gone, the Central Bank of Indonesia will continue working through the hybrid, meaning some of them are physically, but some of them are virtually. whether virtually from office or whether virtually from home or virtually from London. I can work virtually from London. I think that's the when I was driving, or even when I was diving, because one of my favorite sport is diving. So I think this is the new normal that we are planning to establish a central bank in the post-pandemic office, which is hybrid. Some of them are physically, some of them virtually. This is much more efficient, and as well as also living through a new era of digitalization, Paul.
Which brings us nicely on to the future and of digital technologies in particular, and fintech. And places like Indonesia, a very large country, of course, exciting market. And I wondered how you're approaching this, given that as well you have so many people who aren't part of the formal financial system.
Well, thanks you asked this. Not only digitalization, Paul, but Indonesia, very big country and very big retail market. And this is actually the potential that we already addressing and developing. Let me start just to give you some number. How is the speed of development, acceleration, so to speak, of the national economic and financial digital? I'm not talking about the fintech, because fintech is one of the national digital economy and finance. Just let give you some number. E-commerce. E-commerce last year and this year growing by 48.4%, 48.4%, and even accelerated at the back of the COVID. Fintech, the electronic money, the use of electronic money, growing by 35.7%, 35.7. Digital banking. What I mean digital banking is any services of the banking through the online, whether transfer, opening account, whether any banking service, not digital banking, not the institution of digital, but digital banking services of the banking through through the virtual, online, and digital. How much is growing? 30%. 30%. So Indonesia, very fast acceleration of national digital economy and finance. Fintech, digital banking, e-commerce growing, all of them. That's number one that I want to give you. Second, why is that? In May 2019, 10 months before the COVID, Central Bank, I spent 5 months to formulate this. May 2019, we issue what we call it our vision of digitalization of the payment system to integrate the whole national economic and financial digital. We push very hard for the banking to be digital, and then we already see the result. We also push the fintech as well as the e-commerce. But Paul, we do not want them to walk there alone. So we want them to walk together. This is where digital payment system, our vision, addressing. Paul, there is no economic and financial transaction, without going through payment system, right? Paul, right? But at the end of the day, through the payment system. So we digitalize our payment system to integrate. Now, that's why we already integrate. How we do that? In the front end, in August 2019, we issue what we call it QR, Quick Response Indonesian Standard. This is the global standard, EMV standard, but This is Indonesian version. So our QR can also talk with QR in UK. After, of course, we have a cross-border agreement. And we already do that. We are doing now with Thailand, with Malaysia, and soon with Singapore and the Philippines. Our QR Indonesian standard is the front end wherever people transaction. I'm coming from the hometown, Paul, a small market there, traditional market. I ask my staff, I do not know how you do it, but when I get home, I do not want to bring money. I just want to bring my cell phone using QR Indonesian standard. And voila, now it's already done. That's on the QR Indonesian standard. Second, what's the language to integrate the services of the payment system from digital banking, the fintech, the e-commerce, the open banking in UK. But we do take another route. We standardize our national standard open application programming interface payments. And I just launched this year, August this year. Why August? 17th of August is our national, celebration of independence. We announced it. So Indonesia now only one language, what we call it SNAP, SNAP, just SNAP. This one language for payment services linkage between digital banking, e-commerce, fintech. So this is integration, Paul. This is already integration. Not only QR Indonesian standard in the front end, but end to end. Now using same language, SNAP, what we call it. Third, we are building retail fast payment 24/7, real time, and what we call it BI fast, Bank Indonesia fast payment. I will announce end of this year, December. A number of banks already signing for joining the first batch. This is 24/7, real time. So this will be like a toll road for retail transaction settlement. This is BE fast payment. Fourth, what we do to consolidate our industry. I do not want to have shadow banking in Indonesia. All of the financial service, the payment services need to be integrated in the financial institution or the payment system institution. And we already issue and we are already consolidated our national industry of the payment system. There is three classes, the systemic, critical, and general. And we ask them to work together, whether through cross ownership or through business arrangement. So this is the ecosystem of industry, Paul. We are seeing now even growing unicorn, and they are integrated. For example, we are seeing GoPay, Gojek, one of the biggest, now is also joining with Tokopedia. GoPay is on the payment system. Tokopedia is on the retail, the e-commerce. Now they are joining, and they also joining with other bank. And other that, Bukalapak also joining, making. So there is a ecosystem of industry that linking digital banking, fintech, and the e-commerce. They are forming the national championship in the integration end to end. Those the four that actually we already started when I announced payment system vision of Indonesia in May 2019. We issued QR Indonesian standard in August 2019, and following that, we prepare for the SNAP, the one language bahasa, for the services of the payment system linkage, as building a toll road for retail, BI fast payment, as well as also consoliding our industry. Paul, shopping around the whole world. What is the best of the whole world we put in our payment system? That's why your open banking, that's one part, but also Indian version, China version, and other. What is the best on this country? We bring into Indonesian payment system.
One particular question we were going to ask was around debt levels. I think this is in the UK. We're very familiar over years of financial development. You've had a build up of personal sector debt, and I think, to be honest, it's certain sections of the population are inclined to build up excessive debt levels. Is this an issue you worry about in Indonesia, or is it a cultural thing, perhaps in the West versus?
I do not want to put that way, but being Asian as well as Indonesian, we are being taught of the saving. So most of the people are saving. Their consumption mostly are self-financing. Consumption loan is very, very low. Consumption is very low. Even many people are saving by about 20% of their salary. The debt problem is, of course, our government, of course, because it's the fiscal deficit issuing government bond, but being controlled by the parliament because the fiscal deficit cannot exceed 3%, except in this period of COVID, 2020, 2021, 2022. You can increase by before more than 3%, 6.3% last year, 5.7%, but next year will be going about 4.7%. Those government debt, even that being controlled by the parliament. The banking debt controlled by Bank Indonesia. Bank that borrowing overseas need to get our permission. And the corporate, of course, they can borrow, but there is a regulation of the central bank. They need to meet the criteria of risk management. What are they? Liquidity risk, currency risk, as well as rating, which is one notch below investment grade. Paul, 97 Asian crisis that hitting Indonesia, giving also our lesson. Don't live in the debt. That's actually the thoughts that actually strengthening our culture of people saving, but also making risk management of the government, corporate, and the bank become more stronger and sound.
Yes, the 97 crisis seemed to leave a very deep mark on many Asian economies, and policy is still very much reflective of that. It's very interesting. I think it's often underestimated in the West just how important that particular period was for Asia. But I was going to come on to Islamic finance, where Indonesia, I think, is a majority Muslim country, and you're one of the world leaders in Islamic finance. And that's what I was hinting about with the cultural aspects of debt. Islamic finance is something we very much try to include in all of our courses as we try to teach global central banking and global regulation. And you're one of the main centers in the world, but it's not necessarily very well appreciated in the West. And I wondered if you could say a little bit about how Islamic finance, Sharia banking would impact on the work of the central bank.
Well, thank you. Actually, I have a personal interest. My office, the central bank, have also a great interest of this. First, this is one of the part of the inclusion of the economy and finance, because majority of our population is Muslim, as well as there's need a part of the inclusiveness of the economy and finance. We view Islamic economy and finance is not about the religion, but it's a model business, which is for all. The business not only confined to Muslim, but also even for non-Muslim. How we do that? Well, of course, we learn from history, Paul. In the past, we focus only on the finance of the banking. That's why we are building our banking, which is good. The the government, consolidating the state-owned bank. Now is what we call it Indonesia Syariah Bank, the consolidate and one of the biggest bank in Indonesia. And of course, there are medium and smaller bank as well as rural or community financial services. I think that's on the financial. When I was a deputy governor, I was thinking because this is also one of my interest and study, and I was back then in 1986. One of my focus of study is Islamic economic and bank. I learned from the past experience we cannot build Islamic finance only confined to the finance on the banking. We have also to have a program for the inclusion economy. So inclusion economy, inclusion finance need to get together, including also Islamic finance and Islamic economy that need to get to, Paul, this is like supply demand. We cannot growing the banking and the supply, the finance without growing also the demand. So we introduce what we call it a three pillars, three strategy of developing Islamic economic and finance. The first strategy, of course, the Islamic finance, the banking, the services of the finance, but also community, as well as also in Islam, Paul, there is also charity, there is also productive okaf, and so we mobilize that. So that's on the finance. But we also developing, of course, we call it. In Indonesia, we have a national committee chaired by President Hesed, National Committee of Islamic Economic and Financial Development. We have a coordination on that. Central Bank also engaged in developing the community-based Islamic economy. The culture, the religious values already there. Introducing the business, actually, what we do. How we do that? Making them a cluster or group of smaller community. Because we cannot grow the inclusion economy one by one, or unit. Scale of the economy is very, very small. So we make group of them. And what they need is about the capacity, the technical assistance, how best the production, standardize the production, as well as the financial access, as well as also the marketing. So we do that. And also on the Islamic economic, not only in the making the group, the capacity development, but also building what we call it the supply chains from small, medium, and large. And we focus on the 5 commodities: food, fashion, of course, tourism. The 4th is, of course, on the pharmaceutical, and the 5th is renewable energy. Now, of the 5, now we're focusing on the first 2, the food and the fashion. My body, this is from Aceh, Aceh. This is our SME that developed by our office in Aceh. We teach them how to make a good, excellent body, and we invite designer to make the designer, and also we are, holding the event. Even one of the event we hold in London, Dicky is doing that. So we sell that, and I'm becoming the marketer. Everybody is SME developed by central bank, whether conventional or Islamic. This is the way that we develop the Islamic economy, and together with the Islamic finance, this is where actually we grow together. And last but not least, we are campaigning. The central bank doing the campaigning of the Islamic economic and finance. How we do that? Every year, and this year is the 7th, what we call it in the Indonesia Syariah Economic Festival. This is global. every October. Before that, there is 3 festival of the Syariah economic finance on the every region. Indonesia is very large region. So we do that. Campaigning becoming important. And thanks goodness, Paul is becoming growing not on the Islamic finance, but also in the Islamic economics. But beyond that, the awareness, the style, the lifestyle is growing, not only from the Muslim, but of course for inclusion.
Yeah, it's very interesting because I do a lot of work on sustainable finance, and it seems to me that your Islamic finance, the principles would fit very nicely into most
Yes.
of the problems that we have with sustainable
Yeah.
finance. And just on that, my last question was going to be around climate change,
Okay.
which is a topic of a great deal of interest to many institutions, including central banks. And I wondered what's the Bank of Indonesia currently thinking and doing on the topic of climate change?
We already doing, because Bank Indonesia is joining, central group of the central bank group of the financial sustainability of finance. We are a member of that. And beyond that, we also issuing a regulation, mostly on the macro prudential, because linking to finance, the green macro prudential. We issue that. Also, we also developing the market for the finance. Well, Paul, this is the issue that we are facing. So my heart is on the green finance, the green economy, the green finance. The central bank are doing, not only from the heart, but also on the policy and the thinking, the advice, and so on. When we talk about the green economy, the green finance, there is four, the biggest, the largest, which is the natural resources, and also the small, the community. We do a lot of progress on the community, as I talked, the SME, Islamic economic. We are introducing the green, economy and finance, water, sanitation, and as well as, many aspects on those, and through the, of course, philanthropic finance from the green finance. We are progressing quite good on that. The issue is on the largest part. First, this is linking to the natural resources. So that's why the government are addressing with the transition period, because we cannot just shift from the, all the style of using natural resource, the coal, the palm oil, and so on into the new. Need the transition period. And the transition period, this is where actually you can call it a carbon market and so on. This is where actually we're working from the central bank, from the sustainable finance. We're working with the bank to how to structure the financing. I think from the central bank, the finances is not so difficult, because the structure of the finance, the green finance is a lot of best practice we can adopt that were suitable for Indonesia. The issue is how to prepare the project for the largest part. This is where actually that we have to work together. That's why, and the G20 and others and international institution. This is where actually UK, advanced country, US can also help us on how to best transition our economy from the old style into the new, more green, sustainable economy and finance for better living, of course, better economy and a better welfare, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Governor. I think we've taken up quite a chunk of your time already, but I found it a fascinating discussion, because a lot of people in the West would think that central bank is only about monetary policy. And yet here we've covered financial.
No. That's not my style, Paul. I'm Paul. Just give you. I'm from the village. I'm the son of the farmers. And my heart always from the people, the green and so on. So Central Bank of Indonesia working throughout the economy. The central bank policy make not only monetary but macro-prudential, payment system, money market development, but also the scope of the works. Not only inflation, growth, financial, and so on, but we go beyond that. which is inclusion of the economy and finance, Islamic economy and finance, and beyond that, the green economy and finance. Thank you, Paul, for the time, and I'm looking forward. Anytime that you need, to have more talk, I'm here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Governor.
Thank you.